A little bit about this talk and a little bit about me. I'm a principal engineer. And if you aren't one, probably haven't had some of the scope on this stuff, but Android is one thing that I do. It's not everything I do. And I'm going to come in with a little bit of, hey, doom and gloom to start, and some perspectives of how we got to where we are and why you are not an Android developer anymore. In fact, actually, what's that? You're not really an Android developer at all. You're not even really a developer. I thought that's what your job was. How many people are developers by trade? Raise your hand. Pretty much everybody. Awesome. So what am I not going to do in this talk? I am not going to give you plans of what you need to do. I'm going to treat you as an adult. What a shocker, or a reasonable facsimile. Some of us may not be there yet. I am not going to make a prediction about the future of Android. There is a lovely talk happening right on this stage, right at this time tomorrow. If you want to hear from people more brilliant than myself, I know Greg used that word like 3 times. There are people that I listen to who are mentors of mine that are going to be on this stage. Let's hear what they have to say. And to that, I'm not going to predict the future. I'm no AI expert. I'm only going to tell you about where we are now. And quite frankly, everything just seems like it's in such a spin of turmoil that I don't think I could be halfway accurate even if I watched this talk 3 months from now. And lastly, I'm not going to lie to you. Some of this is going to be hard to hear, but I'm going to trust that everybody here can be an adult. Does everybody feel like they can be an adult today? Maybe. Oh, hey, we're all at different stages. So first off, the world's on fire. How about yours? Literally, I think he said welcome to hell at the start of this. So, but I'm going to talk about a little bit more in your kind of like career stage, right? So anybody feel like they're on call 24/7, 365? Guess what? There's some active wars going on in the world. That affects things. Political unrest. I don't think we've had this level of kind of political division going on across the world and inside of countries for as long as I can remember, if I'm perfectly honest, and I'm not very young. We have an economic downturn. Consumer spend is down in a lot of areas, but it's up in others. And overall, it's led to a lot of us going, man, stuff costs a lot. And we're seeing our salaries lower. We've been seeing our trends lower on our engineering salaries approximately, 3 years? Ever since the boom that we got with the pandemic. An uncomfortable thing, we have layoffs. How many people have been laid off within the last 2 years? How many people have friends that are still searching for jobs? People who are amazing, people that you believe in. Well, why aren't they being successful? And it isn't necessarily them, because the FANGs are kind of messed us up a little bit. The reality is, and I hate to be the business person here, but now your position costs a lot more money than it used to. We used to be able to, at least in the US, essentially write off your entire paycheck every single year as a cost of research and development. And now they get to write off a quarter of that. So you just became 75% more expensive that year. Easy to see how that makes it hard for you to keep some of the people you already have, especially when the other part of that is our entire industry was propagated up by very, very cheap loans. The fact that we were able to buy houses at 2-3%, that's what corporate loans were. they were essentially the price of inflation. When you can essentially get free money, you can invest in new ideas without having to worry about essentially having your rate of return be so much higher. But now, those corporate loans, they're 7 and 8%, which means if you're a company, you need to double that to break even, which means what? You're at 20%. And the last time I talked to anybody who runs anything, they're not going to be happy with break even. So now it's 25%. So anything they invest in, they have to see a 25% return almost immediately. And then you have things that cost a ton of money. AI is an investment and an opportunity cost that these companies cannot afford to lose. There is so much upside if they can be even just one of the major players, because we know that consumers live on a 1-2 system. There is a first choice and a second choice. The third choice might make it, but probably won't. And so you have to spend to get there. And that means that FANG channel, I call it a channel because it's churning tunnel of jobs, is no longer there. And they don't have to hire you straight out of college in order to make sure that they have the best and brightest, and that they're hoarding all of that intelligence for themselves and creativity for themselves, because they actually don't need you anymore. And that's an uncomfortable thing to say in a lot of cases, but we're going to kind of work through it. So I told you I was going to start out with doom and gloom. Does this feel all doomy? Everything's dark clouds. Kind of, where's the state of our art? Congratulations. All right, so now we have some brevity. You have reached commodity status in the marketplace for consumers. Everyone expects an app, and everyone expects it to be reasonable. I didn't say good, I said reasonable. If you're entering tax forms, I'm not expecting to have a great experience once a year, but I am expecting it to work. That's awesome. We did it, y'all. How many people have been here since 2009 rocking out? We made it. So what does this actually mean? There are 5.9 million Android developers. 3.5 million Android apps in the Play Store alone. We are not even talking about all the different places in which Android is used industrially, or alternative Play Stores, or we basically completely excluded China from this list. And that means that there are 140 billion app downloads expected for this year. It's actually higher. It's like 145, 146, based off predictive analysis. That sounds like a lot of money to me. Does that sound like money to y'all? Sounds like a little bit of maybe we can have a job. But there's a lot of ways to make apps. We have Kotlin multi-platform. Can I hear it for the Kotlin multi-platform folks? Woo! All right. Can I hear from my React Native brothers? All right, they ain't here. But they're in the marketplace. And they don't suck. Where my Flutter people at? Where's my web wrapper app developers? All right, I understand if you're trying to do this. It's okay. I get it. And finally, we have Android native. All right. Hey, we saved the best for last. No, we didn't. But what does that actually mean? Is we have tools, right? Android Studio, IntelliJ, and for the most part, VS Code with a bunch of different plugins. That really kind of is where we are on all of it. So, who's heard the term shift left? I know, it's like the favorite word of VPs everywhere right now. Like, how do we shift this left? So what is shift left and how did we get here? What does this actually mean? So so it kind of started out like every good idea with a good purpose. It started really truly as kind of what we consider now test-driven development, which means we introduced kind of testing and iteration a lot earlier in the product cycle. And then we kind of said, we could automate this. And then we really got bought into unit testing and end-to-end testing and user testing and integration and long product life cycles to really nail our customer bases, but with a lot of iterative development with direct feedback. And what that kind of actually ended up doing is it eliminated a lot of QA and QA positions. How many people work at companies that have almost no QA? Raise your hand. I see the QA people here. Those are the people who raised their hand. You are QA. That got shifted left onto you. And that then became the question of how many steps. So it started out as us eliminating steps. And then it became jobs. As soon as you became QA, it became jobs. And oh my God, wow, it worked. It's really hard to disagree with how well this worked. It gave people numbers to know exactly how good their code coverage was. It gave people CI/CD systems that made it really easy for you to know when things failed. And then we started to call this an attitude of shift left. And that meant, what can we do to shift left onto our existing staff? What actually happened here? And I'm going to throw kind of this little diagram here, but we used to have a lot more splits. And now we're a lot more directly integrated. So you might have a product and design lead for like your entire app, or I'm going to say like a major feature if you're working at an Expedia or an Uber, where you have like one director of engineering, one principal engineer. You have product and design leads that are essentially running all the people that are subordinates, or not even directly subordinates, but rank subordinates across all these verticals and essentially shared resourcing. And that's meant squadification. I'm making a new word. It's called squadification. Y'all might call them teams, but that is an integrated team where everyone is working towards a very specific feature and they have very specific business alignment. So this small org actually can achieve their quote unquote OKRs. If I say OKR, does everybody know what that means? Yes, okay, nods. Basically, these are your tangible business goals. And now that you know more, and we talked about shifting left, you need to do more. Because we already gave you the QA job. What else can we give you? Y'all aren't overworked yet, are you? Well, that also applied to not just engineers. I know we feel like it all the time, like, oh, they just shift everything onto the engineer. Well, it shifted that way for your managers and your product folks as well, because they became project managers, and your product managers became business analysts and customer experience professionals. When's the last time that you interacted with somebody who was doing actual customer research that wasn't part of the product organization? So now that we're in these tightly integrated squads, we're all taking on a few more jobs, we're all kind of driving towards this unified idea of what we need to get done and how we're going to make money. This is the ultimate realization. You are hired to solve problems and make money. Can I make it rain, y'all? Are we going to make it rain? Are we going to make money? Yeah, we got to make money. And that's what the idea of shifting left in a lot of cases is it's not always about just what jobs can we pull on to other people, but the ultimate realization of the superpowers that you as an engineer came to the ground stage with. You came with problem solving. You are very good at finding unique patterns and analyzing them and figuring out optimal solutions. It just happens to be that we all know how to code. But it's also meant that there's opportunity that comes with that. Because now you're valued for more than just the code you deliver, even though somebody who's essentially stack ranking you might disagree. I hope that trend changes. Because your technical skills translate. We had everybody shouting for what team they were on, right? Well, guess what? What do those actually mean? You write Kotlin, you write Dart, or you write JavaScript. What are all the different places that's used? That means you can write apps for just about every platform. You can write the client front ends for desktop. You can even use all three of these languages to write websites. You can also use, well, in Dart maybe a little bit less, I'll give it this one. But you can write back-end code. Back-end code that I work on right now is entirely Kotlin. Do you know how easy it is to be able to go in and say, hey, I want this client API interface, and just go and do it? That's a superpower. That's value you're adding to integrate into the entire product lifecycle. And that means you have more value. So they didn't just unfairly shift something left onto you. They gave you opportunity to control your own timeline. And by that, your expertise is still required because you are mobile experts. Do you feel like it? You know exactly what a user expects from a design paradigm, from an interaction. Most of the people here are going to be experts not just in mobile, but what does Android actually need to look like? How many people, raise your hand, have been given the iOS design and say, make it work? That's our whole job, y'all. I don't think I've seen, and I love my designers, but ain't no one of them rocking Android on the regular, right? And we can tell. I'm not trying to be shady, but we all have our preferences, right? And it's good that we have iOS, honestly. But we also expect you to bring that level of system design. How does your app integrate into the entire mobile space that someone is operating? And lastly, the real thing that happened when we shifted left was you, as engineers, you became product owners because you know mobile better than anybody else in the room. You know how to build it. You know what your users expect. You know what the design should look like. You've translated it. You know what the back end should do. You know what the performance needs to be. You own that sucker. And I don't just mean the fact that somebody's going to hit you up on on-call when something goes wrong. I'm saying that is intrinsically part of what you bring to the equation, is ownership. So what's the state of work? Kind of coming it back all full circle. We have new expectations on every level. Technical delivery. Number one, that's the thing paying your paycheck. You made the thing and you sent it. The other part of that, you're an owner now. Brand awareness. What does your brand stand for? What do your customers know your brand to stand for? Are you okay with the fact that animation looks all sketchy and frames are dropping? Is that part of what you consider your brand? I don't mean to be like the corporate person here, but like even just, I'm not even talking about the corporate brand. I'm talking about you as a person, your brand. Do you think that's okay? If the product manager said ship it, that's his problem. But brand awareness matters. Knowing what you're doing and how it actually interplays with everything else, that's going to keep you nicely employed. How many people know, and I spelled that wrong, how many people know the analytics for the thing they work on? Every single person in all of my orgs, on all of my teams, has access to all the same analytics platforms, automated tooling, and everything to be able to track and trace every user across every system if necessary. Of course, it's all anonymized, hey. Because we want you to know, and you need to know, especially at promotion time. Hey, y'all, we're at mid-year reviews. How well did the thing that you do or you made perform in the marketplace? That's the ammunition you bring in to every promotion and every compensation discussion. And what was your impact on it? If you don't know what your analytics are, you also aren't making the right decisions to know, hey, this thing's underperforming because I know what the business value of that actually needs to be. So now that you understand the analytics of it, you need to understand the business value. What does that present as value to the business, either directly or indirectly? Is it more users? Is it direct revenue? Unfortunate, but this is how it is. The other part is market trends. I talked about where the user expectations are. You're the product owners. You're the product experts. You know what the market trends are. Every one of us is scrolling social media like and pretending that we don't. So you know what people want and what they expect. And finally, user analysis. You should know and love your users because ultimately it's their choice whether or not to use your product. And I hate being like the corporate person here, but I actually genuinely, and hopefully nobody from work's listening here, but a lot of times in the early stages of anything I work on, I'm the one replying to the customer reviews and all that stuff because ultimately I can tell them the rightest answer. And of course, you gotta get it approved by whatever entity that is. But do you care enough about your users to try and help them? Or are you just making a paycheck? That's also fine. Make your money, pay your bills. Talked about being an adult. But these are the expectations on every level. I expect this of my SE1s. I expect this of my senior staff. I expect this of my managers. I expect this of my product managers. I expect this of everyone in our organization to do all of these things. Because unfortunately enough, delivery is everything. And you have to move at market speed. You have to design solutions that allow you to essentially go, oh, this is trending, clock it in. Because micro seasons are the thing now, and it is what it is. But kind of the elephant in the room is, and I wonder how many people feel this pressure. Technical excellence is no longer rewarded. Ugh. It's no longer rewarded because it's expected. You have no reason to deliver, and I'm going to say this quite frankly, half-assed work. You have no reason for it. There's good enough. Good enough is good enough. But technical excellence is no longer rewarded because how many of us have also seen the person who's the best coder never get that promotion? Are they also the person that you go to when you have problems? Yes or no? Being the best coder doesn't necessarily mean that you are delivering at the highest levels and that you're delivering the things that provide value. Because there's other things that matter too. And I guess that's hope for all the crappy coders among us. Because you got to use your brain. And you got to control the machine. We've all made these jokes about AI. AI was, I made a very fun game of doing a counter and showing it to the presenters at an I/O every time they said the word AI. And I did make them laugh, and then I stopped because it's not, I don't want to mess people's jobs up. But we all laughed about it. And I also want to kind of just point out, everybody in this room has been the butt of every iOS joke since the beginning of time. Let's not do that to our AI brethren as well. Because the truth of the matter is, FANGs have overpromised, but AI has not underdelivered. They are engineers just like you. And as we've seen by all the discussions that we have going on today, there's actual value in some of this. Now, I'll be perfectly honest, I haven't seen a single lick of code that's better than an SE2 be produced by anything. But honestly, how good do you need those tests to be? Right? Nobody's getting extra points for how well their tests are performing. They're getting points for how well their tests are passing, how good their coverage is. And there's great AI tool chains to do more than just kind of autocomplete, and especially with formatting and everything else. And if you're not using an LLM to just ask questions during the day, even if it's just the Gemini and Android Studio, which I'll be perfectly honest, I use as like a glorified docs file because the documentation on the Android site is, whoa, bad. And, go ahead, play. Run Hugging Space, different models, either directly on cloud or some of them you can run directly on your machine, and really familiarize yourself with what's going on. There's a lot of good reasons why there's hype right now around this. And some of it is just going to help you be more productive. It's just a tool. It is not going to be able to replace the fact that you are a product owner, that you know what your customers want, what they need, the brand awareness. All of those other skills that this industry has shifted onto you are the whole reason AI is not going to take your job. It's going to augment your capabilities. And if you just want to live in coder land, well, that's your choice. But here's some good news, right? You can actually build it. Using AI tools for prototyping and idea spacing and actually getting something into a consumer's hands or into a product manager's hands just for ideas, it's never been easier. It's never helped you iterate more on ideation than you can right now. And that's always going to be true. That statement I can say like every single year or every single week. But it actually holds value now. Opportunity is flexibility. So when I talked about all those different skills that got shifted left onto you, you know what you can actually do now? You can throw a product idea up and you can just build it, and you can actually get a product manager to approve it, and you can ship your own ideas. There's no more of this throwing stuff over a fence and saying, hey, make it programmed, or move this button, pixel push this. It's your idea, your feature. They helped you refine it. That's not been true for a lot of people at large companies for a very long time. That's really just been something that came out of startups. And now that is the process being used at scale in large companies. Which means you now have the ability to impact customers and products directly in multiple capacities, because guess what? Your skills translate to back end. Your skills translate to front end. That's growth, y'all. Growth. You don't actually have to be the smartest person on the team. You don't have to be the best coder to be the one with the best ideas, the best leadership, and the best cohesive attitude. And I'll be perfectly honest, the fact that testing and integration just got way, way easier is not necessarily a bad thing. Because those AI tools, they help you kind of just set up a prototype backend, or, hey, I want to see how this is going to look on the CMS. Pojo me this. And I would love to be able to even release even faster, but I'm going to throw shade. Google Play, hey, those review times. 1 week, y'all? Come on, 1 week? How am I supposed to ship my customers in real time when you put a 1 week stasis? So what's the bad news? Now there's a career growth limitation. If you just want to write code, that used to be something you can make your way all the way up to distinguished engineer almost at. If you're amazing, right? A person that I cite kind of often, and if you don't know who that person is Diane Hackborn. She is the goddess of code in my mind. But she's also way, way up there. But it used to be that, you could make your way all the way to the top being a technical expert. That is senior staff now. Staff, if you are just absolutely killing it. If you just want to write code, that's fair. This is fine. There's nothing wrong with ending your career as a senior staff engineer. In fact, probably the less you know, the better you sleep. But big tech is overpromising. I said this earlier. They are telling their customers they are replacing their engineers with AI. And the reality is that they aren't replacing people like you. They're just trying to figure out how they can keep their train of revenue going with as few people as possible. This, quite honestly, Elon probably kicked this off, but this was an active discussion well before he did what he did. And unfortunately enough, a lot of the people I know in C-suites, while they publicly told their companies that they were, this is so bad, whatever. In the back rooms, every one of them was going, God, that's so badass. I can't believe he did it. And what we see is more and more companies doing the same. And they might be doing it a slightly more polite way than showing up in the front office with a kitchen sink. But that doesn't mean that that isn't the trends that they're looking at, because your job costs so much more than it used to. Loans are so much more expensive. If they want to actually work and get any new opportunity costs, it has to come from coffers, not bank accounts. So they're overpromising because they need to be a top 1 or 2 player, or else they have no future. And ultimately, because of all these costs and everything else like that, everything's under scrutiny. It doesn't matter how much money you made sometimes. I can cite that there was a company, I saved tens of millions of dollars and they still showed me the door, all right? The reality is, I looked at the numbers and even I saw, they don't need me to run for the next 6 months to a year. Why wouldn't they fire me? Or why wouldn't they get rid of me? Why would they keep me? And it's not because, he's awesome. Those decisions are never made by the people who work with you. And to a certain degree, I think we've all seen this with 5G. They said 5G was going to change our lives. How many people think that their faster phone internet has changed their life? Anybody? Nope. Did you know it's actually all just LTE? And they just put a different compression algorithm on it? I kid you not. The other bad news, entry level's basically dead. At least directly as engineers. Which means that your entry level engineers are probably going to come from different places, at least for clients. Which means they might actually be graphic designers. Because we have these AI tools and things like that, they might be your kind of starting person. You help them refine, you help them grow, and maybe they become an Android developer in your team. Same thing might be with newly minted product managers or whatever thing a company actually needs to get made and done in a reasonable time frame. Those people might be kind of like your utilitarian folks that can operate in multiple capacities, one of those being an entry-level engineer. Or you can steal somebody from client and backend because your skills translate to client and backend. So where does this kind of leave us? The beautiful thing. Making tech is now for everyone. How many people have developed an app just on the side? Because you could now. Raise your hand. How many people built a website with AI? How many people built backend with AI? How many people just used the Firebase Studio and got a piece of code that didn't actually run? All right. Shady, I know. Like, why do I have like 5 different studios? But the truth of the matter is that making is for everyone. That means making ideas through film, making ideas through art, making the actual tech that you can get into somebody's hands, making those ideas real. That is amazing democratization of technology. And we're at the head of it. And we know how it works. And we know how to use it. And we know how to make the best version for every single person who thinks that it's okay and gives us the privilege of putting them right in our pocket. And so with that, these are my slides. Here's my information. The place that I work, there's a code. If you download the app through there, you get $5. And I just really want to thank everyone for kind of going through this. I know it's hard to hear, but I hope that everyone comes out of this just completely empowered and rejuvenated in some ways by knowing the reality of today and knowing how to apply it now. Thank you. All right. I don't know if Greg wants us to do live questions here or somewhere else.
Thanks, Stacy. Hey, feel free, if you have some questions, feel free to come up to this mic. That way everyone can hear you. Otherwise, if you want to have some other questions, tomorrow at 1:40, Stacy's hosting kind of an office hours, a career office hours here over back by the unconference session. So, but feel free, popping up here. We got a few minutes before we go into our break.
Come on, y'all, I don't bite. Well, at least not this far away. Yeah, go for it.
Hello.
Hey.
So yeah, amazing talk. Thank you. So I had a question about your thoughts on AI. Another thought. So a lot of people who have spent a lot of time developing their careers and building their engineering skills, et cetera, and have now like seen AI essentially progress to the rate it has to be able to do a lot of those things. If there's some anxiety about like, oh, you've spent a lot of your time like building skills that, you know, may not be potentially useful in the future, how do you kind of feel that like you can mitigate, or someone should mitigate that self?
So I'm going to pull a reference directly from everybody who's been doing this for more than 5 or 6 years. Y'all remember XML layouts and when we got shown compose? Same, but different, right? We were told to abandon skills we had spent a decade building for a brand new paradigm that if you've never built essentially some of the like Vue.js or any of these other systems, you would have no familiarity with. And then we started using it, and we found some bugs. We found a lot of bugs. Remember all the performance bugs? Everybody remembers the bugs. But how many people are using Compose in their app right now? My app's 100% Compose in a lick of XML code anywhere. It's the same thing. If you want a direct analogy, that's the closest thing you're going to get. It's going to change the entire way that you operate, the way that you think about code. Think about launched effects. Think about how much that's changed. Reactive state programming truly into our systems, not with data binding, but actually reactive state. We're going to see the same thing take over our industry. The best thing about it is that you are an architect. You know what has to be done and how it needs to be used. So you can actually use those tools at every progression of their skill level, because at some point they are going to be as good as a senior engineer. And how much better do you need them to be than that?
Cool. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Anybody else? Go for it.
Yes. Hi. So we talked about AI, and I just wanted to get your opinion on. So our skill set is Android development for everyone. How important it is to also dab in AI development. Learn about models and whatnot in AI. You think?
Well, because every discussion is going to be, oh man, how do I get image recognition or object recognition? Or, oh, what if we put this QR code, but we wrapped it around a spear? Every like weird idea. And if you at least have some idea of like where I should go, I'm not saying that you have to dabble any kind of furthermore. Like, I'll also be honest, my husband's the head of AI of a publicly traded company. We talk about this stuff. The discussions at my house are always very weird compared to other people. But I think you're doing yourself a disservice as a product owner in this case of not knowing if there's something you can use in your products right now to make an experience better. A great example from, that we can use, right? Like, how much easier would it be if somebody could essentially take a picture of a package and it knows exactly what the dimensions of the package are? If you're like a UPS, a FedEx. Now, we've been able to do that with kind of scanning around it and other stuff like that. But what if it could use relative objects next to it and automatically calculate it? So if somebody put a dollar bill next to it, took a picture, they're in a totally different place, and it could do the measurement for you. Those are the kinds of things that you're going to leverage in a mobile experience that would make no sense on desktop. Yeah. And knowing how to do it, knowing some of the mechanics. I mean, honestly, we all ended up. Who went to school to be an Android developer? Did anybody?
No.
You dabbled.
Yeah.
You learned. You applied it to what you already knew, and you found yourself in a different career. Or you found yourself in the same one with just more knowledge. Either way, it works.
Yeah, my husband is doing an AI course right now, so our house talk is similar to that too.
Yeah, why not? Why not? I mean, if you don't know backend, learn some backend. If you don't know this, learn some that. In fact, that's pretty much what you do if you're anything above staff, honestly.
Thank you.
So my question is about how we control the adaptation during all this time. Like we have in transition, even in Android, we have Java, Kotlin, and all this, and we have too many technologies. So what would be like a good way to adaptation with the technologies?
Well, how do you keep up with it? How do you use it? Honestly, I just subscribe to like every newsletter. And while I may not read every article because I'm not a crazy person, I absolutely read the title of every single one. And while I'm working on stuff and I'm not in meetings, which is, 3 hours out of my 8-hour day, I just run videos, TED Talks, all kinds of stuff. I'm not actually paying attention. I'm just trying to absorb little tidbits of information that I can go back and reference later. And that is probably the best advice I can give you with being able to transition, is knowing when there's that tidbit of what somebody else has already done and how to leverage it in your own job.
Okay, thank you.
Good. All right, round of applause for Stacy. Thanks so much for being here. We really appreciate it.